Mic check. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for your afternoon happy hour. All right, I have the green light that the sound is good. So, I hope you are enjoying it. 1:15. Do you know where your children are? Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, I am the Old Humble Guy. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company. You can see behind me my number 2 still column. My number 1 still column is still on the ground. We are probably going to be running a batch of whiskey through one of our stills very soon. So that's exciting. But hey, I'm the Old Humble Guy. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company, and it is 1:15 and time to bottle up some whiskey. I'm going to be doing some rye. I just checked orders from our distributor. We sent 15 cases out to them. We have orders for 10, so it's going to be probably sometime next week when we get our second order of the month, which is exciting as hell, super duper exciting as hell. Making sure my camera's in the right spot. It's not, so we're going to have to adjust this. We will be working as usual over here in the bottling zone. So that is my bottler, and that is my bottling table. It's actually right here next to me if you want the lay of the land and all. Well, let's get to it, shall we? We shall. Let's do a quick word from our sponsor while I go grab bottles. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I am the Old Humble Guy, Joe Brita. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company, and you are in my tasting room, and I have to ask, have you tried my delicious whiskey? Because if not, I've got a treat for you today, because we have 4 award-winning Texas whiskeys for you to try. First off is our straight whiskey, 90% corn, 10% malted barley, aged 5 years in used bourbon barrels and bottled at 90 proof. Next to it is our special reserve. We take a portion of the straight whiskey and put it back in new barrels to age it a second time. Gives it a little bit deeper color, a little bit darker flavor, a little bit oakier, smokier finish. Third on the list is our Boomtown Bourbon, our flagship bourbon, the first bourbon we've ever made. A true Texas small batch craft bourbon made in 50-gallon batches and aged in 5-gallon barrels. And finally, our Double Oak Rye, a true Texas rye sourced with grains from the Texas Panhandle, aged with extra oak staves to balance out that high rye flavor and give it a nice, clean, smooth finish. 4 award-winning Texas whiskeys, all available right here at the Old Humble Distilling Company and in finer liquor stores near you. Plus, you can go online, oldhumbledistilling.com. Go to shop online, and you can order yourself up a bottle there in 46 states across the country. Treat yourself to something nice. Treat yourself to something from Old Humble Distilling Company. Cheers and happy drinking. I did that commercial so long ago. I don't even really remember what's in it. I mean, I remember basically going down the list of the drinks, you know. But the red shirt and khaki pants, gotta look ridiculous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 20. 2, 4. It's 24. I need to do a number that is divisible by 4 and 5. 120, but I'm not doing 120. 60. 60 divisible by 4 and 5. That would be 5 cases. I guess I could do 5 cases. I only got a couple of hours. It's 1:15. I need to open the shop at 3 o'clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 32. Tell you what, I'm going to stack up 6. No, I'm not even going to stack up 60. I'm going to do 32 now. One case is going to go to the shop. So that goes to the shop. That's going to go to the field. And then we'll have, you know what? We'll do one more case. We'll do 3 cases. Yeah, we'll do 3 cases. I need to do 5. I need to do 7, actually. But 3 cases is a good start because I can do 4 later on tonight or tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the Old Humble Guy, and this is my bottling machine. We're bottling up rye, like I said. We're doing rye today, so going to take my rye barrel, open it up, and begin the process. And there we go. So the first step, obviously, it runs whatever air in the system is through. It gets it out of the system. I'm going to turn it a little bit more this way so we can see what's happening. And now that the air bubbles are out, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to take my funnel and I'm going to pour those bottles back into the rye barrel. Because also whatever was in, I think the last thing I did was straight whiskey. Might have been Special Reserve. This lid says Boomtown, but it's not Boomtown. It's almost certainly Special Reserve. So I believe the last thing I did was the Special Reserve because we drained that barrel. So today's the rye. Tomorrow we'll do Special Reserve. Then Monday and Tuesday we'll do straight whiskey and finish the rye. Okay, so there we go. I don't know if I have a good whiskey topic to talk about today. Let me go into my bag real quick and see what topics I have to talk about. But first I need to go make sure my front door is locked. So, because we have workers working across the street clearing land of trees. And I don't want people randomly coming into my shop when we're not open yet. So, door's locked. We're good. It feels good in here. It's actually almost a little cool. This one's a good topic to start with. Oh my goodness. Let me flip through my topics here. I've got my list of topics to talk about. Good and evil, a social construct or a real thing? Are social constructs real things? Can true objectivity exist? Do we know that? How can we know that things don't exist? That's a good one. No, that is a good one, but I'm going to skip it. We're going to keep going. Is emotion a social construct? Or is it real? Baseball is the perfect sport. I think I've talked about that. Back to the Future stuff. That's easy. So, time travel. These are the topics, like literally. So, time travel. Drawbacks of a one-night stand. Benefits of a one-night stand. I haven't had one of these in more than 30 years. Topics to avoid on a first date. Why not politics, religion, and sex? I think you should almost certainly want to talk about sex on a first date. I mean, that's what you want to do, right? You're trying to have the sex. AI doing. Let's talk about the AI revolution, the impending technological revolution of artificial intelligence. AI doing art, AI doing science, AI good or bad, AI doing stuff. AI actually intelligent or nah? What are all the isms? Fascism, capitalism, authoritarianism. Will AI kill us all? Are we in the whiskey doom spiral? What is a fascism? Well, we could talk about what is a fascism. Holy shit, we're actually seeing that in real time right now. If you wake up in 1975, what are you going to do? Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so hey, you wake up in 1975. So now what? That's going to be what I'm going to talk about today. I don't want to talk about AI. AI is too doomy and scary. So, and admittedly, I haven't done. I mean, I've done some research on AI, but I haven't really looked deep into the front edge of what AI is coming. My interaction with AI is basically Chat GPT, Grok, Descript, an AI editing software. Okay, y'all, I'll get to that in a second. You know, not a huge set of interactions with AI, but I'll put these bottles on this end so that when I do come over here to do the work, y'all can still see me and I don't vanish off camera to over there. But once I'm done bottling or capping them, I'll move them over there so that we'll always be in the right spot. Oh, and Paul, Doomcat, you're not in chat yet. You will be. I have your package assembled. It will be going out in the mail soon. It is not part of our primary delivering whiskey gift boxes is not part of our primary activity. So it takes me some time to get it done. But we'll get it done, promise, cross my heart. So I'm also admittedly not very familiar with 1975 because I lived about 6 months of my life in 1975. We're being sponsored by Handmade Bird Lover Gift from Lumindi Shop. So thanks to those guys, Lumindi Shop, for sponsoring the Old Humble Distilling Company stream. We are a monetized channel. We're a monetized channel, and so those ads do help. Don't skip them, so that they get the maximum bang for their advertising buck. And if it is an advertiser that has a product that you're vaguely interested in, go ahead and buy their products. Go ahead and buy my products too while you're at it. oldhumbledistilling.com. You can find us online. Every bottle you purchase goes to a portion of the funds goes towards defeating fascism. I'm not a big fan of fascism. Not a fan of fascism at all. And you know, here's the thing. I have often been willing to come up on a panel show with people who hold contrary views to mine. And I'm always willing to talk about what I believe in, because I actually believe the stuff that I talk about. The brotherhood of man, the fraternity of mankind, equal rights for all, liberty and justice for all. I hold these truths to be self-evident. I actually believe this stuff, right? As opposed to, you know, people who go online and they just They're the fake edgelord dickwads who just spout their bullshit and spout their nonsense just to get a rise out of people. I don't do that. The stuff I say is stuff I actually believe. I really do. Is that better? Is that a little bit better? I really do dislike factory whiskey. I really do believe craft whiskey is better. There's bad craft whiskeys, but I believe the process for making it, even if the whiskey is not as good, the process for making it is better. Better for communities, better for the economy. I do not begrudge giant corporations doing what they do. I understand why they do what they do. I understand what they do. I understand why they're beneficial and why they have a role in the economy to play. But I do absolutely wish they could be more constrained so that the playing field was a little bit more level. But I actually believe in the stuff that I talk about. And it occurred to me, I don't remember when it was that it occurred to me, but sometime late, middle part of last year, that these people don't actually believe in the bullshit that they're saying. They're just saying bullshit, partly because they think it's funny to get a rise out of people. They're like, oh, I'll be edgy and I'll get clicks and I'll get views. But they don't actually believe their own bullshit. They're just saying stuff like, oh, we can solve the homeless problem by putting them all on a cruise ship, sending the cruise ship out into the ocean and then sinking the cruise ship. They don't fucking believe that shit for real. That's fucking nonsense. And like, you actually can solve the homeless problem pretty easily and pretty affordably, but not when you have morons like that acting like murdering thousands of people is a legitimate idea. And when you call him on, he's like, you don't really believe that, do you? Oh yeah, I totally believe it. We put him out on a... And I say that because I was at a bar last night and Fox was on one of the TVs, and that dumbass Greg Gutfield was doing his stupid little show on the stupid little TV in the stupid little bar. And they were talking about how Greenland is getting military assistance from the rest of the NATO countries. They're assembling a small army to do maneuvers. I can do one more case. Do maneuvers on the island. And this dumbass goes, we should crush them like ants. An allied army. We should crush them like ants. And, he thinks he's a comedian. He's not funny. But he tries to be a comedian. And I know he thinks that's funny. But the thing is, it's not funny. It's like dumb, dangerous rhetoric. Especially on a news station like Fox News, to have your entertainers say bullshit like that, because the MAGA chuds of the world that watch this crap and act like it's real, they're going to go around and say the same stupid crap. Oh yeah, we should crush them like ants. And they puff out their chest and they stomp around and they say stupid shit like, oh, our government should be tough and it should appear to be tough and we can be tough like the rest of the world. Make the rest of the world know how tough we are. Otherwise, you're just a bunch of pussies, and if you don't like it, you can just leave. Well, the thing is, that's not how the world works. We are a superpower, not because we are stronger than every other nation in the world, because clearly, the clear fact of the matter is we are stronger than any other nation in the world. But we are a superpower because we cooperate and have the ability to cooperate with just about every other country in the world, even countries that we do not share ideological values with. We can cooperate with them, like China, even the Soviet Union. back in the day, we could cooperate with the Soviet Union even if we were adversarial with the Soviet Union. We shared seats on the Security Council with the Soviet Union. We didn't always work together. Shout out to Roe. We didn't always work together, but we were able to form consensuses back when that was something that we did as a superpower. We would be able to form a consensus. And if we couldn't form a consensus with even the Soviet Union, then we would figure out a workaround. We would be clever and figure out a workaround and figure out a way to build a coalition without them, so that it wouldn't just be the United States versus the Soviet Union. It would be the United States and the world versus the Soviet Union. And it forced the Soviet Union to build what they wanted to show, or what they wanted to present as a consensus partnership amongst the Warsaw Pact nations. But what it ended up forcing them to do was basically build an imperial military domain with these Western or East European nations, and it kind of escalated their political collapse over time. Because what happened, economically speaking, is the Soviet Union was pushing resources out to these other countries. And the Soviet Union was really kind of a donut empire, I think is how they were described, where Russia was underdeveloped and all the satellites were more developed than Russia. And that was 100% a result of geopolitical engineering of a superpower against another superpower, and forcing them to do the things that it looked like we were doing, but we did things differently. We weren't always the good guys. Don't get me wrong. Historically speaking, we weren't always the good guys. When we would go do things, we would prop up dictators to preserve our resources and preserve our political affiliations. I mean, that was Cold War geopolitics 101. Stability was key to everything. And if you are stable, a stable dictator was better than an unstable democracy. And arguably, a stable dictator was better than a stable democracy in a lot of circumstances and a lot of situations, especially if that stable democracy had any inclination whatsoever to partner up with communist Russia, communist Soviets. All right, that is 4 cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 cases. 4 full cases. I guess there's really nothing stopping me from doing a 5th. It's 1:38. I have an hour and a half. Might as well. I can pretty much do 5 cases in 2 hours. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Anyway, that's not how we worked for years. And I know this neocon idea that came about in the late 90s with the attack on the invasion of Iran or Iraq and all the other stuff that happened in the 90s. The idea that we, as the sole superpower, we could do whatever we wanted. But the reality is, even as a sole superpower, we can't do whatever we want. There's not a circumstance where that's sustainable. Because, yeah, sure, we have a military that's larger than the next 10 militaries combined, but the world doesn't run on aircraft carriers. The world runs on money and dollars specifically. And if we keep fucking around, we're going to find out that there's alternative currencies that can be used. And if that happens, then we're going to be seriously fucked. If the world stops running on dollars or Duncan, because the world does run on Duncan from what I read. I prefer Shipley's because I'm a good Houston boy, and in Houston we do Shipley's. Checking my level down there. I think we probably got another 5 cases to go down in here, which means I need to get more rye in the building. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, but that's why I don't go on these shows anymore. You'll notice I kind of, with the exception of Bacon, and if I say his whole name, he's going to appear, which I guess isn't such a bad thing. I go on goddamn Bacon's show every once in a while, the Apocalypse Report that he does on Friday nights. Today's Friday, right? So I go on that show, and he gets his fair share of edgelords too that don't actually believe the bullshit they talk about. But he at least seems to be sincere, so I don't mind talking to him and airing out ideas and talking about things with guys like him, because he seems to be legit in that he actually, for the most part, when he talks about stuff, he believes in what he talks about. He gets his dumb little edgelords that come in there and try to be dumb little edgelords, but me, being the level-headed guy that I am, I don't have any problem calling out those dumb little edgelords and poking a finger in the premise of their dumb little edgelord personas. They're just dumb. It's dumb and it's silly, and I don't like. I don't want to give validity to that, because like this channel being a monetized channel, I could host shows talking about Bigfoot, flat Earth, and we've done it. We've talked about Bigfoot and flat Earth and things like that on the happy hour. But it's always been, why do we know the Earth is not flat? Why do we know Bigfoot doesn't exist? That was one of the topics over there. Well, how can we know that things don't exist? You don't have to go through every nook and cranny. You don't have to walk across every inch of the face of the earth to confirm that a thing doesn't exist. Because when things exist, you can find evidence of their existence, and that's how we know that things don't exist. There's no hair, there's no bones, there's no fire, there's no tools, there's no burial mounds, there's no there's just nothing. And I mean, even human beings that lived millions of years ago, or humanoid beings that lived millions of years ago, we have evidence that they existed. We have more evidence that Homo heidelbergensis lived and walked and breathed our air than Bigfoot, which tells me that Bigfoot probably doesn't exist. And I say probably because it's always a possibility, no matter how improbable, that there's unknown things. But in this case, the probable is so vanishingly small. I really don't have a problem saying, yeah, Bigfoot doesn't exist. That's nonsense. And the thing is, if it weren't for the internet, stupid little conspiracy theories like that fucking nonsense would be relegated to fringe books, fringe ideas, fringe communities, the way it was in the 70s and the way it was in the 80s, when it was like, when it was an idea, but it really wasn't a thing. It was folklore, but it wasn't a seriously held idea in anybody's head. Amor Lee, Christina, 33. Women message first. Real ladies, verified profiles. Jesus Christ. Lonely losers out there. And I got a hymns message earlier. So the first ad that was on the channel was hymns. So this ad was for singles, some single dating app. So if you're a lonely loser who can't get a boner, I guess you're watching my show. Thank you, lonely losers who can't get boners. You fit a profile. That's awesome. So I'm probably, this is 5 cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of these cases is going to the distillery. One of these cases is going to Jody, Amber, and then into the tasting room for the other 4. And then the other 3 are going to be ready to ship out. And on Monday, I guess, I'll finish the 5. And then I'll finish the 5 and then get into the next set of Special Reserve and straight whiskey. So anyway, and that's the thing. These dumb, stupid little fringe ideas would not exist right now if it were not for the internet. The 9/11 truthers, the Sandy Hook truthers, people like Alex Jones, who perpetuate lies and nonsense. If people used the internet for actual information and not spreading lies and bullshit, chemtrails wouldn't be a thing. COVID vaccines being used to inject a 5G chip into your blood to track you wouldn't be a thing. None of that shit would be a thing because because it's bullshit and nonsense. And if the internet was being used to spread information, that information would be flagged as nonsense. But people make money off that nonsense. People make money from clicks and views of people who say stupid bullshit nonsense like 9/11 was an inside job, or that lady had it coming, that fascism isn't that bad, that we should, that immigrants are crime-ridden, diseased filth and should be eradicated. I mean, people make all these claims online. They don't believe them. They're just doing it to get a rise out of people and doing it for the views and doing it for the clicks. And I don't want to participate in that anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll go in rows of 8. Nope, I need to go in rows of 10, don't I? No, I need to go in rows of 6. I need to do 10 rows of 6. But I'm going to keep this as 10 for now. And then when we're done, when I start doing the front label, because the next thing is the front label. So I'll do the back label. So I'll do a label and I'll rearrange the rows from 10 rows or 8 rows of shit. What am I doing? It's 5 cases, so 6 columns of 8 bottles. 10 bottles. 6 columns of 10 bottles, or 60 bottles. All right, I got my math right. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I don't want to participate. I've made this conscious decision. So you're not going to, if you've ever seen me on other panels, you're probably not going to see me on as many going forward because I don't want to participate in these dumb nonsense panels where they're like, well, yeah, I mean, the asteroid's probably alien ship coming to visit the solar system and spying. Like, no, it's not. You know it's not. You don't fucking believe that. You don't believe that at all. That is not true, and you don't believe that. But you're only saying it. You're only saying it in order to get a click, get a view, get a thumb. And I'm not going to participate in that. Because I'm not going to be the guy who sits there and goes, well, that's not, I'm not going to be the one sole voice of reason, the one sole curmudgeonly voice saying, oh, that's not true, because that's not fun. I don't even want to have the fucking conversation. Fascism is bad, and what is happening in Minnesota is fascism, and it is bad. And I'm not going to be on a panel of people making up lies and bullshit and being the only person citing actual facts and actual reality because they don't care, because they're not in it for the actual intelligence factor. They're in it for clicks and algorithmic engagement and whatever else, all the other bullshit. So yeah, I don't know how I got on that subject, but because it was going to be 1975. Wake up in 1975. What do you do? So you wake up in 1975. What do? You are you. You're you. This is the X-Men. The X-Men Apocalypse, or was it X-Men Days of Future Past? I can't remember. Wolverine wakes up in his body with his brain from the future, but his body from, dang it, this is burning these things up. This is the second one that's been burned like that. So maybe I need to let the heat gun cool down. So yeah, Logan wakes up in, I guess it was 1965 or something like that. But it was the quantum leap thing. You wake up, you're in somebody's body. You're a person in 1975. You're you. You're 45, 50 years old, whatever. I don't know how old you are. You wake up, it's 1975. You know everything that's going to happen for the next 50 years. And you've had access to future history books that explain what's happening in the 1970s in a way that maybe the news isn't explaining the same way in real time. You know, you've had the benefit of hindsight to see what's happening. You know that Carter's going to lose in 1980. You know he's going to win in 1976. You know Jerry Ford is not going to win in 19. Isn't it Jerry Ford? Did Ford run in 76, or did he not? Did he choose to not run? Was he the one who chose not to run? I will not accept nor seek my party's nomination. I think that was Ford. Or was that in 1969? Lyndon Baines. No, Johnson ran. Didn't Johnson run in 1972? Huh. All right, well, I can't remember. Shows how good I'd be in 1975. No, it was Nixon. Yeah, because Nixon resigned in 72, and Jerry Ford ran, and Jerry Ford didn't run for re-election. because Johnson was president in 64 and 68. I don't know who Nixon beat when because he was 68 and 72. Nixon was 68 and 72. So Johnson didn't run and seek my party's nomination? Or did he run 2 full terms? Because Nixon or Kennedy was assassinated in 63. So Johnson served 64 to 68. Nixon was 68 to 72. And then he resigned in his second term after 72. And Jerry Ford was 72 to 76. And Carter beat Ford. Didn't he? No, Carter beat McGovern. Or was it? No, it wasn't McGovern. It was, yeah, it was McGovern. Carter beat McGovern. Carter beat McGovern. Carter actually ran for president as a law and order candidate. He was a bad president, but he ran as a conservative Democrat. He led as a fairly liberal, but he ran as a conservative, a law and order conservative Democrat. And he was actually on record at one point as saying that people should have a right to choose where they live and where they go to school, speaking out in favor of communities that segregated themselves and chose to segregate. Anyway, what was I talking about? Wake up in 1975. You wake up in 1975. What do you do? What do you do? Like, the world in 1975, Jesus, the world in 1985 was drastically different than the world today. And I don't think people appreciate how drastically different, how quickly society has changed over the last 50 years in ways that it didn't change in the 50 years prior to that, or the 50 years prior to that. Because let's think about it. In 1816, 1600s America, colonies. Everyone's a farmer. The vast majority of people are farmers. And if you're not a farmer, your business is one step away from the farm. You're a bakery, a miller, lumberer, sawyer. You know, you're one step away from natural inputs. There's not a lot of factory work, urban work to be had. You either are a farmer or you're servicing farms. That's the reality in the 1600s. Same thing in the 1700s. And there's more factories, but you're either a farmer or you're connected to the farms. And this is, right around here is where we get the Industrial Revolution really starting to take hold in the late 1700s and early 1800s. and industry is beginning to industrialize, and factories are beginning to open up and develop. Am I off by a whole damn row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm off by a whole damn row. There's 9. I don't know if y'all can see those. Yeah, you can see those. There's 9. Thanks for telling me. Nobody. The 1800s is when we start. That's when the real industrial boom starts to take place. And factories are opening up. People are no longer tied to farms in the same way that they had been. We're still very much an agrarian nation. But for the most part, life in the early 1800s, late 1700s, middle 1700s, and early 1700s is pretty much, in any one of those eras, pretty much the same. You know, you're either working the farm or working one step away from the farm, servicing farms. And chances are, over the course of a year, you're working on a farm. That's where you could get work. If you needed to get a job, just go down the road and ask one of the farmers, hey, do you need an extra hand for the day? Need someone to till or plow or shuck or whatever. And I'm talking like most of America, not the South, because in the South they have specific workers for that sort of thing. But then in the late 1800s and early 1900s, life starts to drastically change in the United States, where you start serious industrialization. But still, for the most part, if you were from the late 1800s and woke up in the early 1800s, 50 years prior, you really would not have a drastically different life or a drastically different understanding. Hey, Matty J, what up? Matty J's in the house. Cheers, brother. But, you know, if you start moving into the early 1900s, now life is actually beginning to look remarkably different than life in the late 1800s. The 1900s and 1800s is when you start to see the first real difference. People with cars, people communicating by wire, people with electrified lights and electrified houses, electrified factories, people working at night as opposed to being bound by the daylight cycles. The late 1800s and early 1900s is drastically different than the middle 1800s. We start seeing some real changes. And then from the early 1900s to the middle 1900s, we start seeing even more drastic changes. But for the most part, somebody who lived in 1950s America could still fairly well navigate their way through 1920s America. Fairly well. Of course, assuming you're a white guy. And probably even a black guy in the 1950s could navigate his way through 1920s America. Pre-civil rights 1950s, navigating their way through pre-civil rights 1920s. Black Americans probably did not have a drastic lifestyle change either. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They were still under the same risks in the teens as they were in the 50s, the same risks in the 50s as they were in the teens with race massacres and lynchings and such. The social compact and paradigms had not changed dramatically then. But then you start moving into the 1970s. A white American in the 1970s and a white American in the 20s. Probably not a huge, drastic lifestyle change for a Black or Latino man in the United States in the 1970s, going back in time 50 years. Probably a big culture shock, culture shift. I don't know if a Black man survives that time travel. A white guy does. 1970, 1925, 1975, 1925. Yeah, it's not that big of a culture shock for a white dude. (1995 to 1945). This is still pre-internet, but not pre-cell phone. People still largely have landlines in 1995. People are still using antennas, especially in the rural area, but satellite TV and cable TV is becoming fairly common. Cable is, especially in cities, normal. In fact, in the cities, cable is probably more normal than antennas. But in rural areas, antennas are still the thing. In 1995, everyone has electricity. In 1945, everyone in the cities have electricity. Rural areas do not for another several decades. Do rural areas have consistent electrical coverage and electrical transmission? So going back in time from 1995 to 1945, obviously there's a war going on. That is a drastically, I think, because of the war, it's a drastic cultural shock for your average white male going back in time 50 years in 1995, but not so much so that it would be a completely foreign place to live. But I think when you start moving into the beginning of the 21st century, 2005, 2000, I'll start 2005, going back to 1955. I don't think your average person, let's assume you're 30 years old, you never lived a day, we're not going back within your lifetime, we're going back to before your lifetime. I don't know if from 55 to 05, going backwards, certainly going forwards would be hard to handle. But I think going backwards would be a challenge, because the way you get around in 2005 and the way you get around in 1955 is different. The way you get your information in 1955 and the way you get your information in 2005 is different. Political affiliations are different. Who you're allowed to hang out with as a white guy in 05 and a white guy in 55 are different. The cultural concept of a man, gender roles and whatnot are different from 1955 to 2005. And I think that they stay different and they keep changing. You keep going forward to now, 2025 to 1975. I think 1975 is more, you don't have a cell phone, you don't have cable, you don't have podcasts. Nobody listens to radio now. They don't, they have rock and roll and disco. Could a guy get through? What do? You wake up in 1975. The way we get around, different. I mean, everything's different. But I think the biggest difference in 1975 to now is just how people communicated. How you talk to people, how you made phone calls to people, how you would write thank you notes and letters and not just shoot a quick text. People would read the newspaper. They would sit down for 30 minutes to an hour and read the newspaper that was delivered to their house in cities twice a day. And sometimes 2 different newspapers. You get a morning edition and an evening edition. And people would read the newspaper. They would read the stats about the game that happened last night. One, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I'm short by 2 rows. That's why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Excuse me. So yeah, I don't think it would be a challenge to get around, because most of the cultural norms from the 1970s to now are pretty much the same. We live in the same civil rights paradigm now as we did in 1970s, with the exception of the acceptance of homosexual relationships. If you were a straight white male going back in time, you'd be pretty all right. If you were a straight black male, you'd be pretty all right. If you were a gay, white or black person, male or female, I think you would have a harder time going 50 years into the past to 1975. Because depending on where you go in the country, because the cultural norms are different then as they are now. But as far as communication goes, I think that is a very strange and confusing world for most people to live in, because we don't know any we don't know phone numbers. I know 2 phone numbers, mine and my wife. That's it. I know 2 phone numbers. Precisely 2. I don't know my son's phone number. Either one of them. I don't know either one of their phone numbers. I pay for their phone every month, and I don't know their phone number. They're under a name in my phone, not a number. And it used to be when you had phone numbers actually stored in your phone. You could speed dial someone and they were number 1, 2, 3. You had up to 8 numbers stored in your phone, because you couldn't store a number under 0, because that was still for the operator. And 1 was always emergency services. Emergency services were 1, and 2 was usually your girlfriend. Then 3 was home. Actually, we probably didn't have our home. I don't know if I had my home phone number stored in my phone when I had a speed dial, because the phone was already home. It's right there in your house. So you didn't have your number on speed dial, but you knew your own phone number. That was never an issue. So here's the thing. I wrote these topics down, and I just I didn't really give a lot of thought to them when I wrote them down. Like, this would be an interesting thing to talk about. So I haven't really given much thought into how 1970, like what I even meant. Going back in time to 1970, you wake up in 1975. What do you do? But that's one of those stupid things that comes across your Facebook feed every once in a while. Like, you wake up in 1923. What do you do? Like, well, probably going to invest in some stock market shit, because I know for the next 9 years it's going to go up. But I don't have any 1923 money, so I don't know even how to do that. So in 1975, you don't have any 1975 money. Let's imagine you wake up in 1975, you got some gold coins in your pocket. These are magic gold coins that transport you to the past. And you're going to be all like, I'm going to invest in a company. Like, what company are you going to invest in? Apple? Apple's a dog shit company at that point. I think they blow up and then roll off the edge of the table. You probably invest in Microsoft in 1975. IBM was blue chip, big time blue chip corporation. They were on the front edge of computer design and computer development. But how do you invest money in 1975? They don't have, like right now, you invest money through your your Robinhood app or your brokerage app, where you just place a buy or sell order. You open up your app and you hit buy, sell 10 shares, beep, boop, boop, done, right? You're probably invested, if you're invested at all, in a handful of stocks and some market funds in your 401k. And then you just have some play money invested in the stock market. But you're not actually making any money off of that. Maybe you have a couple $1,000. Maybe you're making some decent returns on it. Maybe. Maybe. But how do you do it in 1975? Are you a qualified investor in 1975? Are you a qualified investor in 1923? Does Ed Jones exist in your town where you wake up? You have to go to Schwab. I mean, who are you investing? How do you invest in 1975? I mean, I'm sure you're a smart person. You can figure it out. You got a pocket full of gold, but you also got to eat. Where are you going to eat? In 1975, they have McDonald's, but you got to turn that gold into money, man. What are you going to do? Practical things. Like, culture shock is not going to be a huge deal. The cars are going to look funny. The clothes are going to look funny. But the people you're allowed to associate with, that's not that big of a deal. You're not going to have a cell phone. And if you do have a cell phone, it's not going to work. I'm more curious to find out how you convince someone you're from the future if you can't look up information, because almost everyone's information is in their phone. And you don't know specific dates that things happen. You wake up January 3rd, 1975. What are you going to tell someone to prove you're from the future? Who won the World Series that year? Who won the Super Bowl that year in 1975? You don't know. You have to look that up. You can't even place a bet on the Super Bowl because you don't know who won. I don't even know what teams were playing. I don't even know what city it was in. Was that the one in Houston at Rice Stadium? I do not know. And this is how I find out. Hey Siri, who won the 1975 Super Bowl? Pittsburgh Steelers. They won Super Bowl IX in 1975. Hey, Josh Fritz. Hey, Sunflower. And Vanessa Kitty. I'm actually about halfway done with this run. So what we're talking about is if you woke up in 1975, what would you do? And culturally speaking, we're in pretty much the same place we were today as we were in 1975, except with homosexuals, gay rights, trans rights, et cetera, et cetera. And to a large extent, we're kind of in the same place. Which is different than if you were in 1975 and you woke up in 1925. If you flash back in time, those 50 years, culturally, huge shift. But culturally, from 1975 to 2025, not a huge cultural minefield, especially for white guys. White guys can go from any point in history to any point in history. We're safe. That's called white privilege, baby. White privilege doesn't exist. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Because if you were time traveling, if Marty McFly was black, he would have gotten lynched in Back to the Future. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Foreignlovestories.com. 1975 was the second year working in shade tobacco fields. Huh. Josh Fritz, I have seen you on this show before. I believe I've seen you in comments. So welcome back. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've seen you several times. But welcome back. I appreciate the visitation, my man. Yeah. If Marty McFly was black, he'd have been lynched in Back to the Future, and certainly in Back to the Future 3, he would not have made it through the entire series. So yeah, white privilege does exist. Anyway, so if you go back to 1975 from 2025, what do? So you know who won the Super Bowl? The first big sporting event. It was the Steelers, I just told you. But, what was the score? Yeah, you don't know. I think, I don't know where it was played. I don't know the score. I don't know who they played. Probably the Cowboys, if I had to guess. Right? Or was it the Packers? No, the Steelers are, they're an AFC team. So it might have been, I don't know who the Steelers played. And honestly, I don't care. But here's the thing. You don't have encyclopedic knowledge we absolutely don't have encyclopedic knowledge in our brain bananas anymore, because most of the knowledge we have is in these little handheld computers, when we can just go, hey, what happened in, but you're not going to have that. And you're not going to be able to go to the encyclopedias. You're not going to actually be able to go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and find out what happened in 1981. You're going to have to sit down and rely on what knowledge you generally possess to navigate your way through. And if you want to be, if you were told, look, you've got to go back to 1975, this is your mission. Go back to 1975 and make 3 investments so that when you come back to 2025, you'll be a multimillionaire. Here's some gold. Go. First, what? Second, it's like, where do you even start? Who's your broker? Who do you call? How do you even place that bet? Because what companies from 1975 even exist? I mean, you would know by going there and looking down a roster of investments, I suppose, but and would that like future you would have to go back in time. Like if you went into 1975 and placed the investment and then came back to the future in the time machine. But if it wasn't a time machine, if you just had to live out the rest of your days, your future you would have money, so you wouldn't have to go back in time. It creates an alternative future branch that branches off in the past. Or I don't think if you time travel, I don't think that you can't change the past, because the past becomes the future. So you can live forward and not have to go back in time. Like I think it actually creates two copies of you, if you would. Because at some point in the future, you're going to have been born, and your social security number will have already existed and been used. So, but the social security number you're using in 1975 hadn't been assigned yet. Wait a minute. If I was born in 1975 and I go back to 1975 and I can use all of my documentation, my social security number will have been released in June of that year. So as long as I go back in time to within my lifetime, I can use my social security number. I mean, granted, I'll be walking around as a 50-year-old man, and the system will think that I'm a newborn baby. Back to chat. 75 was the second year where, hi Josh, learning is important. That process of mentally working through stuff matters. Yeah, retaining information. Learning things and retaining information and being able to not just learn it and retain it, but actually regurgitate it, process it, use it in a useful way. Because that way, when people say stupid things like illegal immigrants don't have rights, you can be all like, actually, yeah, they do. They have constitutional rights. And you can look it up, but you shouldn't have to look it up, because you should already know that, because you should be able to possess information in your brain. I had to change the label on my barrel here. It had the Boomtown. I could have just changed the top, I suppose. I had the wrong top on this barrel, so now I have the right top. But I think learning it maintains the plasticity of your brain, of that muscle. You learn how to learn, and then you can learn how to use the stuff that you have, and it just kind of becomes a research platform. Companies that do R&D research. Sorry, I walked off camera to get some boxes too. I just need 3 boxes because I need 4 boxes. Actually, I probably need 5. No, I'll just start with, I'll do 4, because one of those cases is going into the shop. But like a company like 3M, they have all these patents, and they do all this research, and they have this base of knowledge inside the company. And when something comes up to 3, 4, when something comes up, they don't necessarily have the solution to the problem that presents itself, but they have a whole set of parts, like Apollo 13. Houston, we've encountered a problem. Houston, we've had a problem. They blew a thing blows up on the ship, and those engineers, they're not there, but they know, they have a set of tools. They have a set of materials, and a set of tools that they can use that are on the ship. And because they know they have been trained at learning and trained to think, they can run down the possibility of how these things get assembled together and figure out how to plug a square filter into a round hole to scrub air out of the command module, carbon dioxide out of the command module. That's what learning does for you. It keeps that brain functional. And if you stop learning, you forget how to think. If you forget how to think, you start saying dumb things and believing dumb things, and nobody can talk you out of your dumb idea because you're not smart enough. You're no longer able to critically think, so you think dumb things like they're putting chemicals in the water and turning the frogs gay is a real thing. It's like, okay, well, this conversation is now over because you are a stupid person. Sorry, I can't discuss a thing with a stupid person because anything I say is unbelievable to you because you will believe literally anything. My God, everything just kind of rolls back together, doesn't it? Because that's what I spent probably the first 30 minutes talking about, is how if it weren't for the internet, conspiracy theories would just be fringe gobbledygook because people don't think. They say stupid things for clicks, and then dumb people think that these jack-offs are sincere. And these jack-offs say stupid things like, oh, real doctors have said that this thing is a big deal. And like my brother in Christ, I had real people tell me that their brother-in-law, who is a doctor, says mRNA vaccines change your DNA, and that is simply not fucking true. It may be true that his brother-in-law is a doctor, but he might be a doctor in philosophy because he's not a medical doctor, because medical doctors know that mRNA vaccines do not change your DNA. All right, this goes into the tasting room. It is 2:32. Let me bring these into the tasting room. It's just a short live stream today. I only had an hour and a half. I only had 2 hours. I've been on for a little more than an hour and 15 minutes, give or take. We got 5 cases bottled up. I need to do 2 more cases, but I don't need to do 2 more cases today. And I could probably do 2 more cases in 30 minutes, but I need to clean the floors here in the tasting room. And I kind of need to prep up the tasting room because tonight is date night at the Old Humble Distilling Company, where we have a special for 4 cocktails or $40. Normally our cocktails are $12 each. But on date night, your cocktails are for $4. You can get 2 flights and 2 cocktails, or 4 cocktails for $10 each. It's a pretty damn good deal. You get to save basically 10% because it's a date. You get to have a little good time at the distillery and hopefully a little good time later on. I can't promise you how your night ends, but I can promise you how it begins if you started the Old Humble Distilling Company. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, my work here is done. And I think what I'm going to do is put it in picture. My work's right there above my right shoulder. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you all for engaging with the show. I had fun. I hope y'all had fun. I like my work. I like doing what I do. Looks like we had 12 people come through. Not bad. Not bad at all. I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it. Are we live? We're almost live. Bev Stack. Huh. Bev Stack just sent me a message. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, children of all ages, we're going to wrap it up so I can go do my work in the tasting room, the boring work in the tasting room. You can find us online, oldhumblедistilling.com. Look us up, shop us. If you're not in Texas, shop us online. If you are in Texas, go to one of the many outlets that have our whiskey near you. And if it doesn't have the whiskey near you, ask for it by name. We're distributed with Republic, and they can order it right there and have it brought into the shop. I'm the Old Humble Guy. This is the Old Humble Distilling Company. You guys are awesome. Stay awesome. Drink humble. Cheers.